as we meet in Ulysses, wouldn't you say?
Oh, absolutely. He's a breath of fresh air in a world that can often feel cynical and self-serving.
Yes. And it's not just his compassion towards others. Remember how the video highlighted Bloom's reflections on his deceased son, Rudy? Even after all these years, the pain of that loss is still so raw, so present for him.
Absolutely. Bloom carries that grief with him everywhere he goes.
It's heartbreaking, but it also speaks to the depth of his love for his family, a love that transcends even death. And that, to me, is a mark of a true hero.
It's a testament to the enduring power of love and the profound impact that loss has on the human heart.
It's funny, for all the talk about usurpation and displacement, it occurs to me that Bloom is also surrounded by these incredibly strong women who, in their own ways, challenge and shape him.
That's a great observation. Molly, of course, is the most prominent example. Their relationship is complex, fraught with tension, but there's also a deep connection there, a shared history that binds them together.
Right. And we can't forget about Millie, his daughter. She's off on her own journey of self-discovery, learning photography, and you can tell Bloom worries about her, about the world, and the experiences that await her.
Of course, it's a parental instinct, that desire to protect your children, even as you know you can't shield them from everything life throws their way.
And it speaks to those broader themes of cycles that Joyce weaves throughout Ulysses.
Yes. Birth, life, death, and the possibility of rebirth through reincarnation, a concept that both fascinates and frightens Bloom.
It's like he's caught in this liminal space between the past, present, and future, grappling with his own mortality while contemplating the cyclical nature of existence.
And through it all, he keeps moving forward, one foot in front of the other, navigating the complexities of life with a quiet strength and a surprising amount of grace.
Thinking about Molly and Bloom's conversation about reincarnation, I'm drawn back to the video's comparison to Calypso's offer of immortality.
It's a really intriguing parallel.
Like, on the surface, it's just a conversation about a word, right?
Right.
But the more you delve into it, the more it feels like both Molly and Bloom are searching for something more, something beyond the confines of their current realities.
Exactly. Reincarnation, for both of them, becomes the symbol of possibility of escape, of a chance to break free from the shackles of their present circumstances and start anew.
Which is so fascinating, especially when you consider Bloom's almost passive nature throughout the episode.
It's like this conversation plants a seed of rebellion, a desire for something different, even if neither of them fully acts on it in this moment.
Right. It's a silent rebellion, an internal yearning for change that simmers beneath the surface of their everyday lives.
And it's through those internal monologues, those unspoken desires, that Joyce reveals the true complexity of his characters.
It's funny how even though the video didn't explicitly focus on the Odyssey parallel, that single reference to Calypso really opened up a whole new layer of meaning for me. It completely shifted my perspective on Bloom's journey in this episode.
That's the beauty of illusions. Joyce was a master at weaving them into his work, adding these layers of meaning that might not be immediately apparent, but they hit you later, like a slow burn.
It's true. And those layers, those echoes of myth and history, they enrich the reading experience in ways that you don't always fully appreciate until you've had time to sit with them.
It's like peeling back an onion. Every time you think you've got Ulysses figured out, there's always another layer waiting to be uncovered.
Exactly. It's a book that demands to be reread, re-examined, and with each reading, it yields new insights and interpretations.
It makes you wonder how Joyce managed to fit so much into a single day in Dublin.
I know, right? It's incredible. It's like he's captured the entirety of human experience within those pages.
And that's precisely why Ulysses continues to fascinate and challenge readers over a century after its publication.
It's a true masterpiece of modernist literature. Okay, we've covered a lot of ground in this section, but I feel like there's still so much more to unpack in Calypso, especially those incredibly vivid details that Joyce uses to bring everything to life.
Absolutely. From the sights and smells of Dublin to those intimate moments of internal reflection, Joyce's attention to detail is what makes Calypso such a rich and rewarding reading experience.
Let's dive back in. As much as we're digging into symbolism and big ideas in Calypso, one of the things I love most about Ulysses is how Joyce brings it all to life with these vivid details like, I can practically smell those kidneys Bloom is having for breakfast.
That's Joyce for you, grounding the profound in the everyday. He wants us to remember that Bloom is connected to the physical world. He's not afraid of those messy parts of life, those raw and visceral experiences. You see it in his language, his thoughts. even his breakfast choices.
It makes those moments when he reflects on death, like when he's thinking about Dignam's funeral, or remembering Rudy, hit even harder. It's like those two sides of life, the physical and the metaphysical, are constantly bumping up against each other in his mind.
And for Joyce, those two sides are inseparable. They're completely intertwined. Think about Bloom walking through Dublin. He's bombarded by the sights, the sands, the smells of the city, but he's also totally lost in his own head, in his thoughts and memories. It's like he's physically present, but mentally somewhere else entirely.
Almost like Dublin itself becomes another character in the episode, this living, breathing presence that shapes Bloom's experience and provides the backdrop for all his inner turmoil.
Absolutely. And like any good character, Dublin is full of contradictions. There's beauty and decay, vibrant life, and this haunting sense of loss. And Bloom, as he walks those streets, he embodies those contradictions perfectly.
It makes me think about that bit when he's walking past all those pubs and wondering how they all stay afloat.
Yeah.
It's a funny observation, but the video made a good point about how it speaks to this larger issue of alcohol's place in Irish society at the time.
Totally. Bloom's preoccupation with the economics of pubs, right in the middle of his errands, it just shows how deeply ingrained alcohol is in the fabric of Dublin. Even if Bloom himself isn't a big drinker, it's all around him, impacting the city and its people.
And then there's that loaded moment with the newspaper clipping about Palestine. It seems so small, but it speaks volumes about Bloom's identity, don't you think? You realize how much his Jewish heritage plays into his sense of belonging, or rather, his lack of belonging in Ireland.
It's a tiny detail, but it carries so much weight. It highlights how, even in his own home, his own city, Bloom is made to feel like an outsider. And on a larger scale, it speaks to that whole conversation about Irish identity in the early 20th century, a time of massive social and political upheaval.
Makes you think about what it means to be home, right? And how the world around us, both physically and socially, shapes our sense of self. Bloom's surrounded by people, yet there's this profound sense of loneliness that permeates his experience.
Exactly. At its core, Calypso is exploring what it means to try and find your place in a world that often feels at odds with your own inner life. And Bloom, with all his complexities and contradictions, is the perfect guide for that journey.
He really is. He's funny, he's insightful, he's flawed, but he's deeply, wonderfully human. And that final image Joyce leaves us with, Bloom in the outhouse, reflecting on life and death, it feels like the perfect encapsulation of his character. What do you make of that ending?
It's brilliant, isn't it? It brings us back to that idea of those two worlds colliding. We leave Bloom in this incredibly private, incredibly human act, yet his thoughts are grappling with the biggest questions of existence. It's like Joyce is saying, no matter where we are, physically or mentally, those internal journeys, those reflections on life, death, and our place in the world, they never really leave us.
It makes you reflect on your own experiences, doesn't it? Your own usurpations, those times you felt overlooked, unseen, or replaced. What do those moments say about us, about our place in the world?
And that's the power of literature, of engaging with a work like Ulysses. It gives us a lens to examine our own lives, to grapple with those timeless questions alongside these rich, relatable characters.
It's definitely given us a lot to chew on. So, listeners, we want to hear from you. What resonated most with you in Calypso? What usurpations, big or small, have you faced in your own life? Head over to our website or find us on social media and share your thoughts. Let's keep this conversation going. Until next time.